Now we're going to talk about the third and fourth events of the Highland Games, being the weights for distance. Specifically, this video is going to be on the heavy weight for distance. So for men, this is a 56-pound weight, and for women, it is a 28-pound weight. Your weight is going to be some version of a metal block on a chain with some sort of handle. This is a ring handle. Sometimes you'll see a D handle. The total length of the implement is going to be 18 inches. It should not be any longer than that. It may be shorter than that. There's a lot of various techniques, but most of them are going to lead to a two-turn or two-spin technique. But this video is for absolute beginners. I want to get you started in the games. So what can you do as an absolute beginner? Maybe you've had zero practice with this or just a little bit of practice with this. The 56 is very difficult for most people and probably one of the most difficult events across the board for everyone. So let's talk about maybe some quick general rules, and then we'll talk about how-to techniques of throwing this thing for the very first time. So you're going to have a box that I don't have drawn right now because it changes. But right now I'm going to have a 9-foot long box by 4.5 foot wide with the trig at the front. We are allowed to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out if you want, but a lot of times people will start with 1 foot out of the box and then end maybe with 1 foot out of the box. Just like the open stone videos, if you watch those, you cannot pass forward past the trig. Even outside up front, I can't go forward past the trig. I must stay behind that imaginary line, and I can't touch the top of the trig. Now in some places they have what's called a wing trig set up where your feet will stay inside the boxes. If you need to get some more information on that, watch the other video on kind of the basics, some of the rules, nuances, stuff like that. I did a different video on that stuff, on the different trigs. In general, most places tend to use this traditional rectangular style trig or box setup, but there are growing, especially maybe let's say the western side of the country tends to use the wing trig where your feet must stay inside the whole time, but it's a little bit wider box. So the 56, how am I going to throw this thing? Well, let's talk about how it's measured. Typically whenever you finish the throw, wherever your left foot is, if I'm a right-handed thrower near the front of the trig, or maybe I've somehow turned, where that foot is where your judge will measure from typically. Sometimes they'll measure from just the center of the trig. This is a distance event. It matters where it lands, not where it bounces to. So when that first thing hits the ground, that's where they'll measure it from. Same with the open stone. I forgot to mention that in the other videos. Now, without having any practice with this thing, the best thing you can kind of do is not get hurt. So we're going to talk about a bowling technique. So I'm going to take the weight and I'm going to step up to my trig. And I'm just going to maybe do 2 or 3 little pendulum swings. 2 and 3. And just try to bowl it out there as best I can. I didn't try to go very hard so I don't have to go fetch it, but I kind of wind up and use those legs and lift and throw it up as far as you can. And let's get that weight. So now I want to talk about the front facing one turn. This is going to be the intro turn to using this thing where you're also maybe going to get the most out of it, but also it's kind of going to forward you and build your progress in the future. This front facing one turn we are going to do is basically the first of 2 turns when you eventually move to a 2-turn throw. So we're doing turn number 1 right now, but we're just going to move up to the front so we gain as much distance as we can. Now I'm going to have to talk through it and then turn my back to the camera, but what we're going to do is I'm going to face the area I'm throwing, and I'm going to swing the weight back and forth in front of me, and then when I come behind me, I'm then going to cast the weight up around me, turn with it, and then throw in the direction I am. So let's kind of go through and talk about that and do one. So you kind of pick up the weight and just get used to swinging it in front of you maybe 1 or 2 times. Come behind me, cast up, turn, and throw. One of the most common things you'll see people do on this is once they cast it up, they wait too long and the weight starts coming down. And I'm sorry my vocals aren't going to carry as well here, but they cast the weight up, it starts coming down and it swings back, and then they do this 2-step turn, and then they still end up bowling. It's just an aggressive bowl. So what you want to do is cast that weight up around you and keep it in this nice long orbit so that when I turn with it, I keep turning and I keep throwing it. So if I'm facing you and I take the weight and I cast up, and notice it kind of stays on the side of my body, I kind of turn with it, and then when I turn, I land and throw. So I want to scoot up about halfway in the trig when I do this. So move about halfway up. So that way when I turn, I'm almost at the front. I don't want to start in the very back of the box and do this, because then when I turn, I I'm giving up 4 or 5 feet right off the bat. So that's the front facing one turn. If you have some ability to practice it, it's going to, in general, probably get it out further than you can bowl. If you were going into a game and you've never touched this implement, go ahead, bowl it. You're probably gonna place close to last in the event, but you don't wanna get hurt with the 56. Women, it's a little bit more forgiving, but maybe the exact same technique. They use a 28. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So this is the heavyweight for distance. I'm gonna talk about the lightweight for distance a little bit differently in a different video. So if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, please leave them below, and we'll come revisit this stuff to try to help you guys out.